gender equality is your issue too. Because to date, I've seen my father's role as a parent being valued less by society, despite my needing his presence as a child as much as my mother's. I've seen young men suffering from mental illness, unable to ask for help, for fear it would make them less of a man or less of a man. In fact, in the UK, suicide is the biggest killer of men between 20 to 49, eclipsing road accidents, cancer, and coronary heart disease. I've seen men made fragile and insecure by a distorted sense of what constitutes male success. Men don't have the benefits of equality either. We don't often talk about men being imprisoned by gender stereotypes, but I can see that they are, and that when they are free, things will change for women as a natural consequence. If men don't have to be aggressive in order to be accepted, women won't feel compelled to be submissive. If men don't have to control, women won't have to be controlled. Both men and women should feel free to be sensitive. Both men and women should feel free to be strong. It is time that we all perceive gender on a spectrum instead of two sets of opposing ideals.
That was the speech by UN Women Goodwill Ambassador Emma Watson and a special event for the He for She campaign, and at the Durian Heat. I will continue the conversation with Sunita Bisan, who is a Chair Environment and Climate Change Commission National Council of Women's Organization NCWO and a founder of Panita Jaya.
The Durian Heat, bringing big ideas and critical opinions in Southeast Asia.
It's very interesting because these issues is long-term issues.
Yes.
And there has been a lot of efforts by a lot of organizations and institutions to make it better and see some improvements basically. But these issues, it stays almost the same. Why is it so? I mean, despite a lot of efforts put in so far.
Let's look at it one thing.
Sure.
For example, let's look at how we are developing. At one end, we are saying that Malaysia wants to have a skill economy. On the other hand, you have an economy that focuses on very low wages and low skill. And this doesn't support whether it's for a man or a woman. This kind of thing doesn't really help develop our labor force, And importantly, it promotes job insecurity. We fail to regulate private sector, and we fail to actually see the amount of precarious work, the systematic failures that we have, our environmental degradation. I think it's very significant, the amount of environmental degradation that you have in a particular country. How much of that impacts the rights of women, children, and the men, and our human rights? How much does that impact? And how much does that impact the future growth of our nation? So those things are very, very important, because if you don't recognize all these complexities, there are just so many complexities, you will reinforce gender inequality, and it will persist. So what will happen is you will have inequality that is linked to economic inequality, that will reduce the impact of growth, that will actually hamper our dreams of sustainability. Men generally will go on to a much more leadership capacity, but women are really the true champions for climate change actions. They are there, they get their families together, their children together, their husbands mobilized. They are the champions. And they do it so willingly and so open-heartedly. And that's the reason why, yes, they accept that. Yes, that's fine. But I would like them to express themselves, articulate themselves, and celebrate. I think this is also about celebrating how they build resilience. You know, they are coping. They are not waiting for anybody to come and tell them, oh, you should do this or you should do that. They are coping. They are finding technologies. They are finding ways forward, you know, and they are working very hard at the ground level, at the grassroots level. For me, for doing this research, is just coming to them and embracing their stewardship, basically, their environmental stewardship. Embracing them for all the work that they have done within their community. And that's not an easy task. And especially not an easy task when you have to do it invisibly.
That was the end of remark by Sunita from the short clips. One is called The Women of Sarawak and Mindoro, The Invisible Battle of Climate Change. And the other one is Women of the Forests, The Hidden Burdens of Climate Change. You can find these clips on YouTube. Special credit to Inshallah Montero, who directed, edited, and wrote the stories of the video clips. So Sunita, I've watched the video work that you have done, which you focus on the women's issues. You've chosen these two places in Sarawak and Mindoro. Could you elaborate more and enlighten us on the video? Why did you choose these two places, and what are the stories behind it?
Women's empowerment, women's issues cannot be separated from our environment. That's one of the most important thing that we need to recognize.
Yep.
Second is that this work or this effort initiative is part of a regional partnership with many other organizations, and PANITA in partnership with a regional group called the Asian Pacific Resource and Research Center for Women, ARROW, in short. And there are 7 other country partners. In the Philippines, we have the Path Foundation, and then which is the Mindoro study.
Yep.
We have one in Indonesia, one in Laos, Nepal, Bangladesh, Maldives, and Pakistan.
Right.
Yeah. So and all these different countries looked at the linkages of women's situation in climate action, and trying to understand where is the interconnection, particularly for health, looking at sexual and reproductive health rights. And when we're mentioning sexual and reproductive health rights, let's be clear that it's not just about reproductive health, it's the comprehensive health package. So that's what this was exploring. In terms of Malaysia, significantly why we chose Sarawak was first of all, as a state in itself, it has undergone a lot of environmental issues, a lot of infrastructure development, and one wonders how things have taken place. So it's not about questioning what is right or what is wrong, but merely seeking to understand how this actions impact the community's ability to cope with their changing environment. In particular, when climate is becoming a major influencer, you know. So this is the reason. And the study that was conducted shows that population is, of course, linked to degradation. And our degradation also, and our development, is linked to our fossil fuel dependence. So in order to reduce carbon emission, which we seem to want, which is the global agenda, it has to be linked to ecosystems, natural resource management. And unless you look at carbon trading or carbon emissions with ecosystem, you are not looking at the whole environmental issue as a goal. So, but this study looks at all the different issues. I would encourage the listeners to go through the video, and you see how it highlights how communities are coping, basically. And I think one important issue is that there is, like I said earlier, to recognize women's participation, to recognize women's leadership. Because we're doing a lot of things and we're doing it invisibly. So when things are invisible, it gets swept under the carpet.
That's true.
Yeah, you don't see it. It's not recognized. If we are going to have an economic policy, it's not recognized in your GDPs. You know, we have to find ways to recognize women's work. You know, whether it's productive, paid or unpaid. You know, productive or reproductive. That's what we say. And we find also that institutions continuously make women invisible. They continuously create this biasness, you know, and in particular when we are discussing about climate change. And I think that this is also where celebrating Women's Day, or this International Women's Day, which is, I think we generally do it the whole month of March anyway, is also to recognize how connected we are to our environment. To all the women leaders in Sarawak who has helped me in this study, and to all the women's leaders in Malaysia at the grassroots level within the National Council of Women's Organisation and all the other volunteer organizations who work very hard to pushing and advocating for women's rights. So thank you, and keep on marching on.
For more interviews by Drian ASEAN, please tune into our website at drianasean.com. If you're on the go, you can always download our TuneIn app on your mobile. Please subscribe to our YouTube channels at Drian ASEAN and ASEAN TV. Don't forget to follow us on our Facebook page, Twitter, and Instagram. We always welcome feedbacks from our listeners. Stay tuned with the Drian Heat from Tuesday to Thursday every week, the same time at 1 p.m. GMT+8. You are listening to Drian ASEAN.
You're now listening to Drian ASEAN, the voice of discovery and sharing.